Welcome to the REI Foundation Podcast, where we cover all the steps and strategies to make your real estate dreams a reality. Now your hosts, Jason and Peely.
Hi, everyone, and welcome again to the Real Estate Investing Foundation podcast with Jason and Peely. Today we have a hugely amazing special day because number one, we are welcoming back Ben Leybovich. He's awesome. Yay! And we are also bringing onto the show Sam Grooms. Welcome both.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm glad to be back. This was one of the first one was one of the funnest shows I've ever done. And I do a lot of these things, and that was just great. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yep, and you had Darren Sager with you, and Darren says the opposite. He said it was absolutely painful. So we said, okay, good. That's why Sam is here today, because Darren could just not take one more show with us. So we said, okay, Darren. So we're going to bring on new energy that's happy to be here. So
Hi, Sam.
Before we get into that great stuff, a little bit more about Sam is Sam, prior to Whitehaven Capital, which we'll talk about today, he's invested in hundreds of multifamily units, combined acquisitions exceeding $25 million. Sam began his career at Deloitte, where he assisted public companies with their SEC filing and went on to manage the SEC reporting for Amcor, a $3 billion public company. And Sam graduated from Arizona State University with a master's in accounting and a certified public accounting. Boom.
And Ben's here too.
Well, Ben,
you're right. I like these guys.
If you haven't listened to the prior episode or heard a lot of the other awesome stuff Ben has out there, Ben was born in Russia and was on his way to becoming, and I think was a professional violin, and at some point was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and figured out, if not music, how can I make a living? And going over a number of different investment-related strategies, came back to real estate, and over 7 years assembled a $1.5 million portfolio of real estate that generates over $165,000 of rent revenue with annual cash flow of over $40,000. But we know with today's conversation, a lot of that has probably changed.
Yeah,
you guys did a show.
Lots has changed.
Yeah,
exactly.
Let's hear. Let's just hear the new numbers right now, Ben. Give it to us.
I think Sam and I bought a $15 million property for about $8 million. It's a repositioning project. We'll need a few years to do what we got to do, but we think that we did okay.
That's great.
I think you did okay too.
Before we dive into it, let's give a little more context. Is that we know you're out in Arizona, and last we met, you were looking actively for multifamily properties. But let's talk a little bit about how you focused on Arizona, how you and Sam became a partnership.
Well, I'll start. I'll let Sam describe how we became a partnership. But really, that all comes down to my exceptionally good looks. I mean,
good.
You couldn't pass that by, you know. But for me, last time I was on with you guys, I think Peely asked, so what now? Because we were talking about a house hack, you know, and I'm still in this house, and it's, you know, great and everything fantastic. Peely goes, so what's next? And I go like, well, I don't know, you know, syndication maybe. So I figured I can't disappoint Peely. So boom, there we go.
Awesome.
So that's how that happened, the reason for which it happened. Now Sam can talk about how he chose me to be his.
That makes me feel so good. We actually we're right there at the beginning and pushed Ben into the world of syndication and large multifamily. That's huge. Thank you. So
Good
Sam.
job, guys. So Ben and I met through Brandon Turner. Since we both live in Phoenix, Brandon knew that both of us were interested in syndications and large multifamily projects. And so Brandon Turner actually connected us. And that was about 9 months ago. And then Ben and I connected. We started underwriting together and spent 6 months straight underwriting before finding a deal.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Now, if you go back to it, you've now done multifamily properties before. Have they all been syndications, or give us a little background on your foray and what your direction was?
So I started flipping, but I knew I wanted to invest passively. Flipping, it's a job. So when I left being a CPA for flipping, you're spending a lot of time flipping. So I wanted to invest passively. It didn't make sense in today's market to do single family homes, even small multifamily. the management wasn't there. I wanted something where I can just hire a professional manager and they can take care of it. So I started investing in deals passively in other people's syndicates. And then that's when I decided I wanted to come over to the syndication side and hooked up with Ben.
So doing that, were you able to learn a lot investing passively? Because I've heard a couple people actually do it on that side, and it's been a huge stepping stone for them to come out and be active on their side.
Yeah, and I actually went into that knowing that eventually I wanted to be on the GP side. So yeah, I learned a ton. With a financial background, I had that side of it, but just seeing the management, seeing the investment side of it, really helped a ton. Just to see what kind of information you're providing to investors, what they're looking for in deals, what kind of returns investors, what kind of waterfall structures there were out there. Learned a ton of how different people were running things.
Do you have some tips on how, when you invested, how you vetted the operators? Maybe if some other people are looking to invest passively, what were some things that stood out to you? You said, okay, this is the operator in the project I wanted to go after.
So if you look at someone's OM, that can tell you a lot about the operator. So if you look at the private placement memorandum, the offering memorandum, that'll tell you how detailed they are. If it's just one that's thrown together and you don't really know what's going on with this investment, I would stay away from that. And actually, there are some big operators that they don't seem to put together a nice product for their investors. So that was one thing I really looked at. I did a lot of local companies here, just because I know the market, know where Phoenix was headed. So a lot of operators that you wouldn't know nationally, but they have a Cushman and Wakefield background locally. I've also done a few realty shares investments. So that the realty shares model was nice. We got to see what the real professional guys were doing as far as syndicators. So we were able to use a lot of that in how we present our deals to investors.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And now from a perspective, why a lot of people are now focusing on the Midwest and Southeast, why from a market perspective did you guys hone down on Phoenix?
There's a lot there. So Phoenix is the second fastest growing large city in the country right now. And the county is number one. Job growth is up. Rent growth is really, really high. One of the highest in the nation. So all the fundamentals are there for Phoenix. Southwest, you might be able to get more cash flow up front, but long term, if someone would rather own in Phoenix or the Southwest, I would say Phoenix every day.
That's great. I actually saw I saw a 5-year trend to 2022. I think you're right. Phoenix was 2. They have a 16% effective rent growth. I actually just saw that on a chart today. So yeah, incredible.
Really impressive.
So, well, and interestingly, right now, just in place, there's been studies. I think it was it wasn't Cushman. Who was it that did that study that we cited in the OM
for rent growth, or what was it?
Yeah, that the national average.
Go ahead.
The national average.
You're talking about the Yardi matrix?
No, the national average in 2017 for apartments was right around $1,330, if my memory serves me correctly. Phoenix is under 1,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so we have all this population growth, job growth, all of this stuff happening, and yet we're not even hitting the national average. Yes, there's 4.5 caps, but this is why, because by the time you purchase at 4.5 caps, organic rent growth to the median is going to give you a 20% bump to that cap rate to begin with at your basis. So buying at 4.5 cap is basically almost like buying at 5 3/4, essentially. Okay. Then the question becomes: is Phoenix capable of hitting the national averages? And that's where you have to make a call. And we're here, and we feel very bullish on the fact that not only are we capable of it, but there's no reason why we shouldn't be on the higher side of the scale, considering the good weather, the opportunities, the income, the corporate environment, and the low property taxes and everything else. So it's very difficult not to be bullish, considering here we are, here's the national average, and we really should be somewhere here, and we're here. It's like, doesn't make any sense.
So if an investor comes to you and they're talking about cap rates and they see such a low cap rate, give us because you have a great points that you've made to us prior about not worrying about where the cap rate starts. Would you be able to elaborate on that?
Right. Yeah. I mean, this deal we purchased, I think it was about 4.75 cap in place. But the only reason we bought it is because of the value add. So, 24 to 36 months from now, our basis is going to be an 8.3 cap.
Speak a little bit on value add for our listeners out there.
So we have about a $1.4 million CapEx upfront budget, and that includes about $7,500 inside and about another $500,000 per door, and about $500,000 community-wise wide on the exterior. So altogether, somewhere around $13,000 per door of CapEx, and that we think can bump our rents by $300, $350. And when you have that kind of, and that's the only way to buy. So what blows my mind is when I see people coming out with 2 syndications a month. I mean, like, it takes me 6 months to find one that I really want to get behind and do, okay? And I see 2 syndications per month coming out from some people. We all know who they are. And I'm just like, what contortions are your numbers performing right now to make this a reasonable proposition, right? I don't get it. Like for me and Sam, a couple of these a year, if we can find them, that'd be fantastic. I don't want to build a pipeline out of it,
So the reason the cap rates are so low in areas like this is because the fundamentals are so well. An investor says, I'll take that lower rate now because I know where Phoenix is headed. That's the only reason a cap rate gets compressed in a certain market versus another.
This is generally true too with any acquisition, right? Value add. An investor should be willing to buy at a lower cap rate because of the fact that there's value add. So if you consider market-wide, this is the same thing. A market is worth a lower capitalization rate based on the fact that there's organic presumed value add in the market itself.
Well, that's why you do a value add in a city like Phoenix, because I get that low cap rate, but I can bring up that cap rate through the value add to an 8 cap. And then I'm buying in Phoenix at an 8 cap where I'm still going to get all the benefits that those people are getting at a 5 cap because I'm going to get the appreciation in rents. I'm going to get the job growth and population growth. So we're basically getting the 8 cap and still getting all the upside that they're getting.
Right. So, I mean, it's the exit is still where the market says it is, right? So right now Sam and I had happy hour. It was quite happy, right? It was pretty happy. We had happy hour with a broker who does a lot of business out here. And they're not seeing anything over 4.5 cap on anything reasonably C-class decent. Okay, that's 4.5 cap. So if you figure your exit today at 5.25, when everything is trading at 4.5, if you figure exit today, and your basis is 8.25, and you figure your exit at 5, that's where you're making the delta. That's where the money is, right? And so the value add is what makes that possible. Which is why, and you can't do it. $150 isn't value add. I wouldn't get out of bed for $150 on this scale. It's too unsafe.
Yes.
Yeah. We bought this thing, and the first 2-bedroom, 1-bath that was rented in place, we didn't even touch it. She got $160 premium.
Wow.
Okay, she just cleaned it up. She didn't even resurface the countertop. It was just in place. They just cleaned it up and gave it out. $160 premium. That's before value add program. That's before new appliances, new cabinets, granite countertops, before all of that. Okay, so that's what a deal looks like. And, that's why we paid 4.75 cap. I would rather buy quality plus value add at 4.75 than go, to Dayton, Ohio, and pay 8.5 cap and be stuck.
So obviously you guys are in a great area. You found a great market. It's a market that you guys know well. You found each other. What allowed you to mentally take action, and what's the steps you took to get started? You said something about this being a 6-month process. Speak a little to that.
I mean, we put ourselves in the position every single day to get a deal. So every day, underwriting, reaching out to brokers, making offers. And I mean, we were in final investment numerous times that we didn't make it, but every day we just did the same thing. And I think having a partner that had the same goals is what got us here. Every day pushing you. There's days where I didn't feel like underwriting. Ben calls me, has a ton of questions about a property. And so we spend 8 hours underwriting on a day that I didn't feel like it. And with a partner out, that never would have happened.
How do you divide your roles?
I'm the good looking. He's, the brain. I don't know. No, this is interesting though, because, okay, so I call Sam my personal Doogie Howser because that Deloitte training, that capacity around spreadsheets and numbers, the magnitude and speed with which he processes all that information in his head is really quite impressive. I haven't seen anybody be able to do that. And because of that training, he approaches the underwriting from a slightly different angle than I do. So I'm a violinist, so I'm much more liberal arts. And I'm well known. I've written a lot on Bigger Pockets about how everything starts with a story to me. Here's how buildings behave. Here's how people behave. Here's how those two interact. Once I transpose that into numbers, what does that look like? So I start with that story about this investment, and then I represent it with numbers. That's one way of doing it, and it's more liberal arts because you're starting with a visualization of something other than the numbers, and you're backing into the numbers, okay? Sam is the total opposite of that. Being a CPA and living in that world, he visualizes in numbers, like his language is numbers. And so his underwriting methodology and technique is a little different. So it was really kind of interesting to then marry the two and find a golden mean where the two kind of arrive at the same conclusions, but differently. So you're checking work all the time. It worked out really well. But I will tell you, for me, this has been a 5-year process. I mean, I've been talking, a good friend of mine, Brian Burke, I've been talking to him for about 5 years and listening and asking questions. And I'm not the sharpest tack in the box, but it's taken me 5 years to wrap my head around even the big picture. I mean, like syndication is a different sport. It's not real estate investing. It's a different sport. The underwriting is totally different. Coming from multifamily, the way you buy a 6-unit, a 10-unit is not the way you're going to buy an 100-unit. It's completely different animal.
Give us some reasons why.
Completely different mindset.
Because it's not a cash flow play. It's a flip.
Why is that?
Oh, you're going to have to pay me. That's where I cut it off. No, why is that? Is very simple. Because if you're raising money from partners, the first question is, when am I going to get it back? The second question is, how much money are you going to make me? In that order. So if your first question that needs to be answered is, when am I going to get it back? Then going in, the first question you have to answer is, when are you getting out? How are you getting out? What does that look like? Well, that's a flip, friends. We're not looking at it, hey, I'm buying some cash flow. It's going to be $20,000 a month, $200,000 a month, whatever it's going to be. We're going to hold it forever. No, nobody wants to stay in my deal forever. They want to get their money back. So if I have to get the money back out, that means I have to get out of the deal. If I have to get out of the deal, it's a flip. So conceptually, it's a very different animal, very different approach. And that tees up very, very different underwriting model.
Yeah, it's great. And going into this deal, how'd you find a deal and how'd you finance the deal?
Actually, it's all about relationships, but this wasn't an off-market property. Sam, did you get that email first or did I?
I think I did, but I'm not positive on that.
What's this email?
We were both on the broker's email list, just as we are on so many brokers' emails list. I get probably 20, 30 emails a day from brokers bringing property to market. This was one of them. And it's just that we had some competitive, we feel, advantage because we're local and because we are a bit of a known commodity. So in other words, the banker, Berkadia financed this deal. They knew who I was. We've not closed anything to this point, but we've worked together and got close on it. The property management company, they knew who I was because we haven't closed anything together, but we've worked on stuff pretty closely. And so when the broker calls to ask around, hey, who are these guys, Ben and Sam, he's getting the answers. And what we did though is we went hard on substantial amount of money in order to tie this deal up before the call for offers. So the call for offers went out, and then within a couple of days after it went out, we had a deal. And interestingly, when I met you guys in Jersey, when I was out there for Darren doing the thing, I walked people through. That's what I did. I walked people through the underwriting on this deal. That event I did, that's 2 days after I came home, we were under contract on this deal, on that very underwriting.
So you made a great point about creating relationships, even though you haven't closed anything, and that gave you a leg up. And we hear that a lot is I haven't done a deal yet. I don't know how to get some standing ground with brokers or property managers or lenders. You have any ninja tricks or any good steps that people should be doing as they're building up their groundwork into buying multifamily?
Sam, want to take that?
I think you need to start meeting with everybody that's going to be involved with the deal. You need to start meeting with brokers, mortgage brokers. You need to start a relationship with your SEC attorney. That's not going to help you get the deal, but it's going to help speed things along once you do. Start meeting with property managers. Ben knew Berkadia, the guys at Berkadia. He also knew the people at our property management firm that we used for this deal. And everybody else knew our property manager that was involved with this deal. So when we had a relationship with the property manager, the broker reached out to the property manager, reached out to Berkadia, and they vouched for us and said that we would close. We were going to do what we said we were going to do. And I mean, that just went a long way. And Ben started that 8 months before we got the deal.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And your property manager, it sounds like it's a great resource for you. How'd you find them, and what was some of the vetting criteria you used for them?
Well, they're one of the largest. They've got, 20,000+ units nationwide in 5 states. So they're not a small player. They're a large player. They own some property on their own. They manage third party. I was trying to buy an asset that didn't work out, but they were managing that asset, and I got exposure to them and got into some deep conversations with them, went into their office, met the principals, all of that kind of thing on the deal that didn't work out. So I had a standing relationship with those guys, and when this came up, they knew who I was. They were familiar with my underwriting. They were familiar with the way that I think. And it wasn't, they liked the project. They really, really liked the project. They thought we could do very well on the project. And so they put themselves behind it. So that was helpful.
Incredible. And you have the property now. What is the strategy with the property in terms of, we talked a little bit about the rent bumps, but some of the other value adds, and from a holding standpoint, what is the intended hold period?
So immediately we're going in and touching everything on the exterior of the property. So new landscaping, new paint, adding some parking spaces, fixing the parking, fixing the gates. We're redoing the laundry room, completely upgrading it, credit card machines, and that you can do it from your phone and you get phone alerts when your laundry is done. We're putting in a fitness center that wasn't there before. The laundry room has a ton of wasted space. So we're completely refiguring it, redoing the plumbing, taking down a wall, and really opening it up to put in a fitness center, putting a large window, adding a dog park on the other side of that window, extending the pool decking. So that phase 1 is just completely redoing the outside, rebranding it, new signage, new name. And then we're going to go in and start redoing all of the interiors.
That's awesome. You've just mentioned like pretty much probably all value add that you can ever do to a building. Like, you guys are doing it. You have the gym, you have the laundry, you have the dog park, you probably have a walking, if you could, you put it in a pool. Awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. Interesting. The property it's 98 units, but it's pretty tight, which I like, because I don't want to spend more on landscape than I have to. So it's pretty tight, but we're touching a lot of things on the inside. And as a matter of fact, today we're waiting for the final scope of work and pricing on the interior. Of course, we have ours, but the PM is large enough so that they have a construction arm and they have a buying arm, and they're kind of preparing theirs, and they're going to GC the project. So, we're waiting on their numbers and reconcile the numbers and everything else. Interestingly, one other benefit of being a large city, specifically in the Southwest, the bidding process for all of the exterior work like roofing, painting, all of that has been extremely aggressive. We have been able to get 5 to 20% discounts on basically every aspect of exterior CapEx against our budget.
And what has led to being able to get that discount?
It's just a happening place where a lot of people are moving in. There's not enough work. Everybody wants, everybody wants to do their best. It's also, it's the conservative place. There's not much going on with unions. There's not much going on. Hey, you can do the job. You want the job, your license, boom, go do it.
What's also helped is we're with such a large property manager that a lot of contractors want to be in their pocket and they want their business to use on future deals. So they have given us some discounts in hopes that they'll get future business from our property manager. At least that's been passed along from our property manager to us. Yeah,
that's a huge point. We're actually going through an aluminum wiring remediation on one of the properties, and we're getting a discount because the property manager has given the electrician work on another property. So that's a huge point to touch on. That's great. Yeah. And you guys hit on so many good value adds. How did you, and a lot of them are really creative, how did you put these together that this is what this property needs? Was it all on your side? Did you get some thoughts from the property manager? Give us some thoughts about how you put together this process you're doing.
It was a mix. So we have a recently finished comp that they give us a lot of the ideas for the amenities. We're near Grand Canyon University, which is going through a huge transformation right now. And that's where a lot of the value adds coming from. They're growing and there's not enough housing for all these new students. And a lot of the properties around it haven't been touched yet. So we looked at what do students want? Looked at next to ASU, looked at the one property next to Grand Canyon University that's been touched, and what do people want in these properties? And that helped a lot. We started meeting with the PM very early in the process. They looked at our scope of work even before we put in the offer. They're already giving us feedback on what we're doing onto the property. And then we've met with them, I would say, a couple times a week since that process. So
is this going to be majority student housing or?
No,
we don't know what it's going to be. We're not gearing towards student housing. We just want to be attractive to that. I mean, the university just announced that they're bringing 14,000 more students and 3,000 more employees in the next 2 years. So the employees, 3,000. I mean, they're not going to buy a house right away. They're going to come in. They're going to need a nice place. And where do the universities go? They go in so-so part of town because the land is cheap. And then they convert that part of town, and it happens every time, right? Every big university, as they grow, they gentrify everything in their path, in their wake, So the same thing is happening here, and if you want to be close to campus and you want to be in a nice 2-bedroom, 2-bath with solid counters and stainless steel, you don't have any options. You're going to have this option.
That's great.
Nice. So tell us a little bit more about the numbers. What's the hold period on this property?
Well, there's a bunch of different exit strategies. We can do the exterior. We can do the community features, and then we can do 20% of the units, prove the value add, and sell the value add and get out that way. The entire repositioning process, we're probably going to need 2 years to complete all of the apartments, but we can get out literally. I mean, I don't know if it's Sam or me or if we agree or what, but I force the issue. I'm not going to get into a deal unless we underwrite it to a 10-year hold, because I don't know where the cycle is going to be. I'm extremely bullish on this cycle, and I'm extremely bullish in Arizona and Phoenix Pacific, but I don't know where we're going to be in the cycle. So we're going to make crazy IRR getting out in 3 years. We're going to make pretty crazy IRR getting out in 5 years. But even in 4 years, we're going to make double-digit IRRs, mid-teen IRRs, even on a 10-year hold. So it was important for me to understand what would happen if we can't get out? What's the financing going to look like? What do we need to do? And you got to plan all that stuff out.
So what are some of the huge learning lessons you've learned so far that you can share with the listeners that maybe you weren't aware of getting started?
Sam, you want to start on this?
They're in this, right? So we got about.
I think you have a lesson.
Yeah.
And I would say involve professionals as much as you can. There's plenty of people out there that specialize in what you're doing, and let them do it. From attorneys, you would think, oh, I need an attorney for this closing deal, but you need 3 different attorneys to put this together. You need securities attorneys, a closing attorneys. You need an attorney for the PSA. You know, you can combine that with the closing attorney, but you need all those, and trying to do it without them just doesn't make sense. We thought we could do without a closing attorney, and at the last minute we went with one, and I'm so happy we did.
No, talk about fundraising.
I was about to ask you that. Talk a little bit about the syndication point of the.
If you have to raise 3.5 million, have 5 million in commitments.
That's great. Yeah, great point.
People back out.
And have Ben Leybovich on your team. That's an even bigger point.
Yeah.
It's hard to raise money, dude. It's we raised 3.5, and we actually ended up turning away some at the end. But there were moments that were just like, and at that point, you've got a couple of $100,000 on the line. This is what people don't get, okay? You put down a $100,000 EMD, which is hard. You put down a $50,000 good faith deposit to the bank. You put down 15 to 20 to an SEC attorney. You give $5,000 to a local attorney. You're into this thing before you even start, to a tune of almost $200,000. You don't have an approval on the loan, and you don't know if you've raised the money. Okay, so if you want to play with the big dogs, it's not for what am I trying to say? It's not for a fainted heart.
Well, it's good that that's not coming. You're not raising that money. That's coming from the general partners doing their due diligence and putting that together before you're even getting into the deal. So you're raising money. That's
exactly right.
After you're getting your securities documents, you have all that in place. Speak with your lawyers and your attorneys on this. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And you raise that money and people get so excited about the deal, and they're not necessarily dropping out because of something with the deal, but they generally somehow find that they're overextended. Maybe their wife started. We had one where the guy felt bad telling us, he was into it, but his wife started a business. They got to tax season and didn't realize they were going to get this huge tax bill because she hadn't paid any taxes. But he held on right to the end. We were like 3 weeks out, and he had to pull out of a big chunk. He's like, dude, I was like, it's fine, but having that extra raise helps you sleep at night, so you don't have to worry.
I'm going to point that out to everybody again. You've heard it from everybody we've talked to. Probably every single syndicator that we've had on this show has said, raise more than you need, always. Because you can always use them on your next deal. Raise more than you need.
Especially on your first deal, right?
I will tell you that the raise more than you need is a function of your deal. What you have is what you have. It's what's going to raise the money. You can't raise the money. Nobody's that good at sales that if you have a piece of shit that you can raise $3.5 million. It just doesn't work that way. You have to have a compelling proposition.
Well, and then going with what Ben is saying, yes, it's true. Have a compelling proposition, but tell everybody what you're trying to do. Yeah. Tell everybody so that they already kind of have it in their minds that, oh, Ben's kind of getting into this huge multifamily thing. What is he doing? Yeah, Ben's doing that. Okay. So a couple months later, Ben's name comes up and, oh yeah, Ben's actually raising money for this huge deal. Oh yeah, I heard about that. Tell me more. Yeah. But get what you're trying to do, get it out there. I mean, you might not be Ben Leybovich, but you can raise money for your deal.
Yeah, you sure as hell not Ben Leybovich. But I tell you the biggest secret, the best way to do it, start a podcast. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Start a podcast. Right. Sam, we need to start a podcast, dude.
Ben tells me this every week.
I just don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
Let's pay somebody to do the work.
I don't have that much
talk. Yep. I've been told I'm quite engaging and very good looking. What do you think?
I love it.
I think
you're in. You're
I
in.
think it's true. Ben's the brain, you're the pretty boy. I get it. Anyway, back to real estate. Enough about Ben's face.
Yeah.
So I've asked you this before. So what's next?
You don't need to blush. We're all friends. We're almost family. It's all good.
It's that Phoenix Heat in New Jersey.
Yes.
That's right. It's in you. Okay, what's next?
What's next?
Yeah.
1,000 units by 2020.
What was that?
1,000
Say it
units
again.
by 2020 is what we're doing, but we're also, I teach. I like to teach. I've always taught. I've taught small multifamily for years, for decades. I write God knows how much on Bigger Pockets. I do less now because we're doing so much more, acquisition-related stuff, activities, underwriting and all that. So I've scaled down on my writing a lot, but I love to teach. We're putting together a syndication workshop in Phoenix. That's going to be in about 4 months. So that's the next project. But I can't see myself as the guy pumping out 2 syndications a month. I just can't see myself in that role with that life. To me, it takes so much out of me. And the most difficult part of syndicating is the fiduciary responsibility. We've all worked with private money for years and years, but you get older and wiser, and this fiduciary thing is heavy. You're responsible for a lot of people's money, and so I can't see myself just doing a fund like that and doing. I figure we can get to 1,000 by 2020, just doing a couple deals a year, just being very picky and doing really good deals, a couple deals a year. That's enough for us to stay active and to be on the brokers' radars and to get the notices, to get the calls and all of that. You have to have some of that, but I can't see myself just perpetually doing. That's all I'm doing is putting deals together and doing. It's just not the life I want. I enjoy teaching. I like to teach. I believe there's more than enough deals for everybody. It's just a view of universe that's maybe different. I don't see things as cutthroat, that you have to stand on somebody's head in order to get a piece. Be creative, figure out your own way, get something they don't see, find an opportunity. There's more than enough. So I want to teach, and I don't know what other facets of teaching I will develop over time, but for now, I want to do a live event.
Well, I love your mindset of abundance. It's true. There's more than enough deals for everybody. If you have the gumption, if you have the brain power, if you have just the drive to take action, you're going to get your deals done, and you're going to get them done with action and by bringing in the correct mentors and learning correctly. So let's talk a little bit about what's happening in Phoenix, this workshop that you're putting together, this mastermind. Yeah.
So this is really cool. It's a little different. It's different because we don't have anything to upsell. We're not trying to get them through the door for a couple of $100 to upsell them on $25,000. We're not doing that. We don't have a coaching program. We don't have a membership site. We don't have a mentorship, this and that and the other. We don't, So we're charging about $1,500 for a ticket to come for 2 days to Phoenix and to actually learn. We're actually going to project all of the numbers, all the spreadsheets on the screen and walk them through the entire underwriting process. We're going to get the attorney, the broker, the PM in front of them. And in the second day, we're going to do a bus tour to the property. So once they see the numbers, see the logic, understand the underwriting, now they can go touch and feel and see what it really looks like and what the numbers turned out to be as opposed to what we
That is amazing. So you're basically going to walk them through your deal.
That's exactly it.
Huge. That's a huge amount of information right there. I wish I had somebody walk me through our first deal that way. I mean, if you anybody that's listening right now, if you don't get more information, we'll post a link to the website that you guys have. Look at the website. Take a look at what they're doing because that is golden.
Yeah, that'll be January 26th and 27th.
Nice.
The dates.
That's huge. And yeah, for people listening, you know the big things. I got to find an area I want I want to be in. I got to go after a property. I got to find money to buy it and get something under contract, underwrite it, and then close it, and then hopefully do stuff. And that all sounds well and good, but it's all the little pieces in there that you're going to be able to get from this that are things that are showstoppers. You'll just have something in there that will be a question that will derail you, that will probably be so simple after you know it, but because you don't know it, you'll get sidelined for 1 or 2 weeks because you don't know an answer to that. And it may be something with syndication related. It may be something that a broker asks you a question, you just haven't heard it before, and it's not ultimately a big deal, but having people by your side that can just help you with the simple answer can save you 2 weeks of time, even more, that you don't get derailed on something that's really not a big ticket item.
So, and I agree with all of that, and I think it's bigger than that though, because like if you're going to put your money into a syndication, you got to be able to deconstruct the offering materials and pull the numbers back down to the lowest common denominator. Okay, how do you know how to do that if you haven't done that before? We're going to teach you. The most confusing thing for most people, and for me in the beginning, for most people though, how do you know what the expenses are going to be? Guys, I'm telling you, ain't no magic in it. There's no magic in it whatsoever. There's 7 or 8 line items in the OPEX. It's been studied. It's been calculated. It's been averaged. You underwrite to the averages. We're going to teach you what those numbers are. So there's no question about them. Syndication is a black box. Large apartment buildings it's a black box. It's a club. They don't want to let you in. There's a lot of money to be made. So it's understandable they don't want to let you in because there's a lot of money to be made. But it's a black box until you shine a light on it, because actually the logic isn't really that complex. It just requires a shift, a marginal shift in thinking. It's like what we were talking about. You're not buying a cash flow property. That's not what a big apartment building is. It's not. That's not what. We have some value there, but it's not where all of the value is, and probably not where most of the value is. And so we'll dig into really what this game is about.
That's awesome. Good.
I can't wait for that.
Well, before we let you go, can you give us, and we think actually coming to the event would be a good answer to this, but give us something that people can do today to take their first action step into learning about multifamily property?
Sam.
Buy a fourplex.
I would say
Buy a fourplex.
Perfect.
Like if you're a small guy and you have 15 grand in your little town of 1,500 people, buy a fourplex. The difficult part about this is understanding the dynamics, because really the numbers stand for something. They're just not numbers. They're there for a reason, because they tell a story. So you got to experience that story. You have to internalize that story. How do people behave? Why do they behave that way? What happens to their jobs? What is economic loss? What's it made up of? You can study it academically, and it probably won't make sense to most people, because most people aren't like Sam, CPAs with Deloitte training, okay? Most people have to experience the dynamic, internalize it, then multifamily starts making sense.
If this is your first time being introduced to multifamily, I would start reading some books. That's what I did a year and a half ago. Go to some local workshops. Maya Azria, a year and a half ago, had apartment training on a weekend. It was $30, nothing expensive. And that was my first introduction to it. And that'll just get you down to getting started on the path. But if this is your first that's where I would start. It's just
awesome. Any book suggestions? Yeah, book to start?
The Complete Guide to Buying and Selling Apartment Buildings. I think it's by Steve Burgess, I want to say. Another one is Multifamily Millions.
Basically, look for books, look for people, look for buy smaller multifamilies just to get yourself into the mindset of large multifamily.
Yeah, it's not sustainable. Small multifamily is a fool's errand. It's not sustainable. It's not manageable. It's not sustainable in the long run, which is why we're all here, because we've realized through doing that that's not the life we want, right? And the value is just not enough to compensate for the headache. So that's why we're here. But the experience has been priceless.
That's awesome.
So before we got on for this podcast taping, you mentioned something about Sam having a baby.
Sam, would you like to share?
So Ben has a Tesla, and he's been bugging me for months that I need to get a Tesla. And I told him I won't get one until we get our first deal. So yesterday, I went and bought a Tesla.
I'm
Congratulations.
clapping.
And we have a three-way thread going with the broker that sold us this building, who also drive a Tesla.
The reason why I'm laughing is because Sam is not the only person he's convinced, Sam's not the only person that Ben's convinced to get a Tesla.
Right.
That's right, Darren Sager. That's right.
So Darren, if you're listening to this,
Mhm.
Sam bit the bullet too.
That's great. Well, guys,
Thank you so much.
Absolutely huge congratulations on the property. We love to see how the awesome progress is going. We love to see how the event's going. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. Before we jump off, if people, guests and listeners want to connect with you, which is the best way to find you?
So the event is going to be at www.justaskbenwhy.com/Phoenix.
Fantastic.
That's where you can register for the event. That's also where you can email me. There's also a little text thing that you can text me and ask questions. We're really not looking for too many people. We rented a space. Matter of fact, we were over there yesterday at Sheridan in downtown. I think 150 is all we can fit in that space, and that's all we're going to do. And we're going to have a group of 16 people that we're going to offer VIP. And there's a couple of extra events, but it's very small, very, very kind of one-on-one kind of thing. 16 people though in that. Yeah, you get the training.
And outside of the training, you can reach me at whitehavencapital.com. Whitehaven Capital is my company, mine and my wife's company.
Fantastic. Well,
Awesome,
thank you
guys.
again, both of you, for joining us today.
It's
So
a pleasure.
it was a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you guys.
So
Go out with a bang, guys. That's how we do it right here on the Real Estate Investing Foundation podcast. Since Peely's tongue-tied, I'll take this one to the finish. No, go ahead.
baby.
All right.
Okay, so this is the Real Estate Investing Foundation podcast with Jason and Peely. Thank you so much to Ben and Sam for being on our show, and thank you all for listening. We are so grateful. Thank
now.
you.
Thanks for tuning into the REI Foundation podcast. Check back next time for more awesome tips and strategies to launch your new you in real estate.